first step would be to be meeting with someone who's experienced in that area and to have a complete list of all of your assets and a really good idea of what your goals are as far as thinking of your income stream for the rest of your life and what organizations you'd really like to impact. About 3 decades ago, back when I was 26 years old, I had been involved with the Buchel Fire Department for about 5 years as a fireman and an officer. And obviously every June was really big because we were all looking forward to the Crusade for Children. And working those weekends, it was a very exciting time to be working with the other firemen that were on Buchel, as well as their spouses, and all the meals that we had together, and obviously collecting money, going door to door, all the different houses, standing in the middle of Barbstown Road at Goldsmith Lane, dodging cars, holding our boots and hats, collecting money. And so shortly after I left the fire department, you know, the Crusade for Children has always been important to my family and I. As a young child, my parents always would gather around the TV to watch the Crusade on WHAS, and I wanted to do something that would be everlasting. A lot of times when we think about the giving that we do to charitable organizations, there's not much thought as far as what happens sometime, someday, when we give up the ghost, when we're not here to write a check anymore. And that's when I thought, I'm going to do something real simple as a 26-year-old guy. And what I ended up doing was starting I started a $100,000 life insurance policy and set it up so that the Crusade for Children was the owner of the policy and the beneficiary. And what that means is, as I paid my premium, the premium was income tax deductible from my ordinary income. Now that's normally the case for everyone, but you definitely want to check with your tax advisor to make sure. And so that was obviously almost 30 years ago now, and that policy has long since been paid up, which means I don't have to pay any additional premiums. And so that death benefit is on the books. It's going to be paid sooner or later, hopefully later. But it's a way to create a legacy. It's a way to do something that's going to be everlasting and really make an impact for the kids. So even today, we have people that we help to set up policies like this that sometimes are going to benefit multiple charities. You don't just have to have one organization. And depending on your tax situation and your advice from who helps you with your taxes, the client sometimes puts in a lump sum of money to get a large deduction up front. Sometimes we set a client up to pay a certain amount of premium per year for a specific period of years to get the policy to where it's paid up so that it's there, it's going to pay off sooner or later. And obviously the Crusade's going to be around for a long time to come. There's always going to be kids that need help, and it's really a good way to create a legacy. A tax credit that Kentucky offers to those who are filing Kentucky tax returns, and it's called the Endow Kentucky Tax Credit. You can read more about it if you go to the Kentucky Secretary of State's website and put in Endow Kentucky Tax Credit. But essentially what it is a tax credit that Kentucky has set up and has set aside $1 million for this fiscal year ending June 30th. And it's for folks who go to one of the 9 community foundations around Kentucky. There's a community foundation in Paducah, Bowling Green, Lexington, Louisville, and 5 other cities. and they can actually set up an account with the Louisville Community Foundation, and it's good for someone who may have some stock that has appreciated really nicely, or if someone has cash that they would like to donate. And so, for example, if someone wanted to make a gift up to $50,000 per person, most of the endowments have a minimum, but let's just say somebody wanted to put in $25,000 of something, be it stock, cash, or some other assets would be acceptable. The Community Foundation sets up an account, and you'd have a name for the account, and it might be the Bill and Mary Jones Family Fund. And a person makes a contribution to this fund, assuming it's income tax deductible based on their tax situation. The gift that you make is deductible off of your federal and your state return, as well as, on top of that, Kentucky will give you 20% of that gift in additional income tax credit. So for a $25,000 gift, you get an additional $5,000 of actual tax credit to help offset your Kentucky taxes going forward. So it's very impactful. It really makes a gift cost you less. And the really cool thing is that when you set up this account, you can add to it over the years. And every year, this account will pay 5% of what it's worth to the charity or charities that you list to receive that annual income. What that means is, every year, if that fund has grown to be worth, say, $30,000, then that year $1,500 will be sent, say, to the Crusade for Children. Or you could split it up between the Crusade and your church, or any 501c that operates in the state of Kentucky. And lastly, on the endowment credit, there are a couple hoops that you have to jump through, starting with an initial application to Frankfurt to ask them if they have tax credit enough left for your gift, and they send you a letter back saying whether or not they do. Then you have 30 days to make the gift, then the foundation notifies them that you did, and they send you a one-page letter saying to give this to your tax advisor when you do your taxes, because it's an extra amount of money that you can reduce your Kentucky tax with. And it's something that we've had this is the second fiscal year, and it may or may not be renewed by the Kentucky legislature, but it's a true way to set up a gift that keeps giving long after you're gone. Charitable trusts are a technique that are somewhat involved, but are good for someone who has assets that has an appreciable interest. It could be stock, it could be property, a building. Many different assets are good to use, and essentially different types of charitable trusts can be set up where when you make a deposit of assets into the trust, there's an income from that trust that gets paid every year for as long as you and your spouse live. And it doesn't matter how long you all live, you get 5% of whatever that amount of money is on an annual basis. So if someone puts in I'll do that a little bit over again. If someone puts in $100,000, they get a income tax deduction based on their age and their spouse's age if they're married. Then they start receiving an income stream from that trust, and they get that income stream for their whole life. Sooner or later, when the single person or the husband and wife both die, whatever is left in that account goes to the charities that you listed way back when you set them up. And that way, you've made a gift, you get the income from it, and then eventually the organization gives the lump sum. Much like the life insurance works, if you donate an old policy or start a new one. The other type of charitable trust works very similarly, but the difference is that once you've set up the trust and put in the asset and you get an income tax deduction, the organization gets the annual check for a period of years, say 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So if you did $100,000 for the crusade would get $5,000 a year, every year, in your name. And then at the end of the term of years, whatever's left in that account, you can name to go to your beneficiaries. It could be your children, grandchildren, and the like. But that way, they end up getting the lump sum while the organization got the income stream.